see if this is working. It says, hang on. It says it is. Hello. Let's see if that works better, because it seems to me how it displays on that camera is different than how it displays on this one. Hello everyone. I'm not sure if anyone's watching, but I thought I'd do a little bit of a live. From, well, Brisbane, as I'm awake. Now I'm just going to edit my share just a tad. That's good. Hi Lions, hello Ken Doyle. Night 681, why was Admiral Lutyens' LP removed? It was removed because, frankly, I was annoyed with the sound problems in the middle of it, and I thought I could do better. So I will do better. Hi, Stephen Richards. Hello, Blackmail Maximus. How are you doing? So, for starters, I have Iron Brew, thanks to the very nice people of Australia. They found Iron Brew and supplied me with Iron Brew, which is a good thing. That is always useful. I'm going to take these off. I don't need them on. I don't need them on. I've checked the sound. I haven't caused any reverbs. The sound was working when I checked them, so I'm going to have it work. That's a lovely question. As much like, honestly, you're asking me if I would prefer somewhere in the region of 4,700 decent aircraft or 600 excellent aircraft for that period, and yeah, I'm probably, for covering the sheer amount of the space that is the British Empire, I'll go with the Lincolns. I can upgrade them. Anyway, so we're doing some books, and you might notice I have quite a pile of books here. In fact, I technically have 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 books here. So I'm only going to get through 6 of them, okay? There's going to be 6 of them done. And no, I don't know why this flashes on occasion. I'm not sure why it's flashing. I'm not sure if it's flashing for you as well as me. You're basically being broadcast from my phone, and I am checking the chat, live chat, on my laptop, and there is a weird light there, a weird light there, a weird light there, and they could all be causing the flashes, or it could be the phone which is causing the flashes. I'm not sure. But, so I apologize now, and if anyone doesn't like flashes, I understand. So, let's start off with, I'm just going to work from the top down, and I'm going to go through about 6 of these books, okay? Because I miss doing the lives, and even though it is about 11:15 at night, I felt I could do them. Yes, we do have internet in Australia. I'm actually in a very nice hotel. Wait a second. I'm going to take you for a little wander so you can see what kind of hotel. Okay. Yeah. I have some cuddly toys with me to keep me company, as well as books. And yeah, this is the view from my hotel room. I am on the 18th floor, It is pretty darn cool up here. There is the river over there, and Diamantina is through that building. So yeah, it's very nice. As you can see, I am suitably organised. Slightly messy at the moment, but suitably organised in terms of everything's in its right section. Everything is in its right section. I even have a mini bar over there, which is completely wasted on me because they give me a whole load of alcohol. It's very nice of them, but a whole load of alcohol is a complete waste on me. The wildlife in Australia has so far been lovely. No drop bear assassins so far. Hello, world of my own. Oh, Melanie 1640, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sorry you had to put your cat down. I'm really sorry about that. It could be. The hamster could be taking breaks. So basically, I've decided I'm going to give you some. I've been buying, or lucky to be given books, which frankly are freaking difficult to get anywhere else, or buying books occasionally, which have been very difficult to get anywhere else. And so I've got some really interesting books to show you. Now, I don't think the rivalries have caused the issue with the submarines, like 681. And apparently it's up to 29 degrees back at home, which is not good for doggies. Anyway, so Voices from Voyager. Now, this I picked up for roughly $23, which by my counting makes it roughly £14. And this was compiled by Carla Evans. This is the 3rd edition. And for those who don't know, Voyager is the daring class destroyer which was cut in half by HMAS Melbourne, the aircraft carrier. And it's a really interesting scenario to go through, and it's a really interesting book with really lots of information in it. It was a sad loss, and it was also, the way it was covered at the time was not particularly great by the Australian government, I would say, and not particularly great in terms of its handling. In fact, they basically tried to, well, yeah, they had issues with how they treated the people massively, and there are some people who probably still owed apologies to this day. There are lots of issues with the story, and I'm not going to get into the HMAS Voyager story in terms of which side I come down on, but I'm not sure I would agree with either of the two royal commissions, which the Australian government very hastily, it could be argued, convened and insisted reported in a very hasty manner. As we all know, if it's a royal commission and it's convened very quickly and forced to report very quickly, you almost certainly know that it was not going to actually find the actual information, because royal commissions are accurate in inverse proportion to the in direct proportion to the amount of time they're allowed to take. Although it then becomes inversely proportional if they're allowed to take too much time. So basically, they are inversely proportional to the amount of time it's taken to call them. So if you wait too long for have them, you don't get good information, and if you force them to be too quick, they will not be accurate. So basically, either way, you're in trouble. Doc, have you now had a chance to compare Australian and US barbecue? No. I keep trying to get to an Australian barbecue place, and we keep getting stopped. I've heard there's a very nice place which a very nice gentleman did mention this evening at the talk that they might take us to, if they manage to get to, if they come to, if tomorrow they might, take us to somewhere to barbecue, because we've got another night in Brisbane. We had the evening meal tonight at the Ship Inn, and that was lovely. Ship Inn was really, really nice, but yeah, I haven't got worked out where we're going tomorrow night. last night we went to a absolutely lovely pub, a really nice pub, and got a really nice burger. And I suppose if no one else gives us any offers, we might well go back there tomorrow night. We might find somewhere else. We sometimes do. I'm glad to hear that too, History Vanguard. I like Captain Majo. I am enjoying the trip. Right then. So this is a good book, but I don't think you can get it in the UK. If you can track it down online, it's worth it. I got mine in a Diamantina shop. This is Destroyer Man by John Allison, which is his personal account of 22 years of service from 1927 to 1949. And he started off, his first ship he was given command of was HMS Decoy in June 1941, and would also go on to become commander of HMS Warramunga, of course, one of the Australian tribals. And so I was really, really happy to be given this. A very nice gentleman gave this to me. Yeah, a very nice person gave this to me, and I have already read it cover to cover and enjoyed it greatly. It's a really, really cool account of a tribal class destroyer history and a destroyerman's history. So that's going into my definite works and enjoyable stuff to read. And pretty much it's also going into my plans of, how am I going to deal with the various things that are coming? It's a cool book. It is a really cool book. Diamantina is lovely. We are there tomorrow to give the talks. I got some beautiful pictures today. But speaking of Diamantina, there is this wonderful book by Peter Noonan, who very kindly, I think I got a signed copy. I might have done, I might not have. I might have somehow managed to get the unsigned copy. Oh no, I have got a signed copy. Signed by the author. Thank you very much. And it's a very cool book. It's the story of HMAS Diamantina. And again, I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if it's for sale anywhere other than the museum, but we got given a copy. And Dan bought a copy. And it's a really, really cool book and really well researched and really fun to read. I've flipped through it already this afternoon. That's actually what I was doing between leaving the museum and coming and going to dinner this evening. While waiting for everyone to get ready, I was flicking through this. It's a very cool book. Worth a read. But she does need, I will say this now, I hope as many people as can possibly turn up to tomorrow's talk. And this is, if that can be shared widely on Discord and everywhere else it can be shared, that would be good. But so we're starting the talks at about 12:30 tomorrow, and they're going to run roughly 12:30 to roughly 2 o'clock-ish, I think. I would also say that if you know anyone in the Brisbane area who is recently retired or something and is looking for something to devote their time to, they have a wonderful cadre already of excellent volunteers who are very hard-working, but they don't have enough of them. It's like, how do I put this? It's like you've got to have a football team, and you've got 5 really great, really committed, really hard-working players on the pitch, instead of the 11 you need. So you're 6 short. And that was it's an entirely volunteer-run museum. It's got absolutely no government support as far as I can see. In fact, the government have very helpfully built a bridge right over them with a viewing platform, so you can view Diamantina and quite a large chunk of the museum's outdoor assets without actually going into the museum. It's brilliant. It gives you a great view, and you don't have to pay anything. But no, it's worthwhile. Sort of, they need support. They need. You can imagine an organisation like that is never going to have enough money. But I would also add, an organisation like that is never going to have enough people, and they need volunteers. They need people, and they have great people there already, but there aren't enough of them. Can you imagine? I walked by Diamantina every day on the way to uni, waiting for my boys to be older before taking them a visit. Thought of a 2-year-old that go around the dry dock gives me creeps. A dry dock, well, that's one of the things. Currently, they don't have enough volunteers to open up the dry dock to the public, so you can't wander down in there because they just don't have enough volunteers to make it viable. Because if you're going to have, it's going to sound strange, if you're going to have the dry dock opening, you need volunteers down there the whole time, quite understandably. They don't have enough people to do that. Hello, DG40. Listen, how much truth is there that the Indian Fleet class being nothing more than a political tool? None whatsoever. They are a useful political tool, but they're not just a political tool by any stretch of the imagination. They're just not. We did get to wander around the dry dock, but if you consider, for us to go down there, they had to send 2 volunteers down with me and Dan. So you think that's 2 volunteers who then weren't able to be doing anything else other than being down with us. So we made sure we were as quick as possible down there. By Maximus, was there ever any plans to chart and designs for an 8-gun Daring class destroyers? Yeah, they did look at it. They decided they wanted the extra torpedoes. The dual-purpose 4.5-inch was good enough in firepower that they could afford to have the torpedoes, and the torpedoes were the heavy-hitting thing for sinking larger things. I've been trying to pause thinking up questions, so not have too many to bark. Nice here, don't worry. There is going to be an entire post-Australian brew ships where I will quite happily sit and work through all the questions that can come in. Speaking of which, there is still, I think, the Patreon suggestions live. I will probably, maybe tomorrow night, maybe Thursday when we fly to Sydney, I will convert that into a vote. Devon Lord, will you be going with Drac for the Australian War Movement or a visit on the 19th? No. I won't be going with him on the 19th because I'm going to be doing stuff in Sydney. I will be going to the Australian War Memorial, I think, on the 23rd. I think, hang on, no, maybe it might even be the 20th. No, is it? Let's see. Yeah, I think it's the 23rd. If I am right about my things, because we go there on the 20th. So he goes on the 20th. I fly on 22nd. No, 22nd, maybe. Yeah, I think I go to the Australian War Memorial on the 22nd. Let me just check the public calendar. No, I go on the 23rd. I'm at the Australian War Memorial on 23rd. Sorry, I head to Canberra on the 22nd. So I'll be in Canberra on the nights of the 22nd and the 23rd, and I'm happy to meet people for dinner if they want to meet me. But and Gareth will be with me as well. So it'll be me and Gareth will be getting it. Basically, Drac is cramming in earlier because he's going home for the Tank Fest. I'm not going home earlier for the Tank Fest. I might be going to Chalk Valley. It depends on what my bank account is like when I get back to the UK. Considering this pile next to me, that might answer the question on that one. The fact I've had to buy an extra suitcase to take it home. Yeah, there is a whole brand new suitcase sitting down there for books. The fact is that I will probably be I will be in Canberra on the 20th, not leaving on 22nd and the day at the 23rd. I get an extra day in Sydney. I get 2 extra days in Sydney de facto because of Drac having to go off. We have Dan's birthday on the 20th. So Drac heads home on the 21st. Me and Gareth head to Canberra on the 22nd. We have the 23rd all day in Canberra, and then I fly to Perth on the 24th. Gareth heads to Sydney on the heads to Sydney on the 25th. I fly home on the 26th. Gareth flies home on the 27th. So, we've got a few trips. History of I'm playing Modern Operations. I've launched 100,000 Tomahawks missiles at Russia. Yanks. Amos Doms. Hello. Listen, it's the Formula One the weekend of the Blue Ships 115, so I'll be joining later. Okay, that'll be fun. Don't worry. Good luck, Captain Manager. So I came across someone who was doing old history, but USA sides for Germany 1-1, and he used Patron 79 to try and point out why it wouldn't work. It would be interesting. The public calendar. What is the purpose of the non-public? The non-public calendar has things like details of the museum, of the all the contact details for all the hotels, all the room numbers, all the museum details, contact details. Basically, the non-public calendar is if anything happens whereby any of the others need to actually step in for me, this is the facility by which you do so. Hi, Paul Ennis. Yes, my mum and sister know that more books are coming home. No, they're not necessarily sure that I bought them all. I didn't buy them all, thankfully. And listen, how long does the Korean War last if the Nationalist Chinese are once at war and then the Korean War doesn't happen? Because it's very unlikely that the communists would have achieved control of North Korea if communists hadn't controlled China. Yes, the Soviets would have possibly tried to influence things, but if they hadn't achieved Soviet influence in China, or at least communist China, they would never have managed to achieve it in North Korea. It would have been slightly different. It might have ended up being a nationalist dictatorship propped up by the Americans, with the ruling family being the Kims. How about our previous work? Yeah, I'm enjoying myself. It's big the heritage them is not going to win. It is a bit of a shame. There are a few things which we're slowly working out. I'm trying to make sure I've got good contact with the Seafarer Centre before I get it. Alright, another book. Secret Fleets, Fremantle's World War II Submarine Base by Lynn Cairns. This is a very cool book. This is a very, very cool book and worth a read. It has lines like this. Fresher sailed from Fremantle, that's HMS Fresher, on the 16th of December. Encountering an enemy convoy of Surabaya on Christmas Day, the submarine sank one ship and damaged another, then 4 days later sank the 3,000-ton Haitian Maru. Tambo, which also sailed in December, 2 days after Fresher, attacked a Japanese destroyer on the 1st of January 1943, but it missed and was bombarded with 18 depth charges. A total of 17,513 tons of enemy shipping was claimed by the Western Patrol submarines during the second half of the year, though some claims were subsequently disallowed. It's very interesting to think about the sheer number of submarines that were involved. The sheer number of submarines. They have lists of them here. They have lists of British submarines involved, they have lists of the American submarines and of Dutch submarines involved. And you learn very quickly there's a lot of them. And there's a reason why they have all the bizarre things over 2 pages. There is considerably more pages of American submarines than British submarines, but you know, it's still pretty impressive. It's a really, really cool book, and if you're interested in the submarines that were operating out of Fremantle in World War II, this is a good book to get. Another great book, yeah. I'm pretty sure Clarke is doing this so his floors and shells can prepare. Honestly, there's a reason why my office is on as much concrete as it is. It affects quite a lot of the things if you think about it. If China isn't communist, then think about how the Soviet Union is going to access and support things going on in those areas. It's going to have a lot of butterflies. It's logistics. It's supplies. The Australian Navy didn't have submarines operating from Fremantle. There's not a single Australian sub in this list operating from Fremantle. But to an extent, you know, it's fun. Basically, the Australians folded into the British submarine force, so they're part of them. Paul Anderson, you thought the 20-minute war spike video was very good. Thank you. It would be very interesting if they compare notes. It would be. Then we have Carrier Attack Darwin. Now, if you can find a copy of this book, it's worth it. I picked this one up for $48, and it's definitely worth it. It's a very interesting, very fully detailed, very fully detailed account of the attacks on Darwin. which are sometimes described as Australia's Pearl Harbor. I wouldn't really classify it as that, but I would say it was an attack which worried them greatly. And I would also say it's when you realize quite how exposed Darwin is by looking at this map. And you go, okay. Darwin's pretty exposed. It's a very interesting read. A very, very cool read. It has been surmised by some historians that McGrath's message transmission resulted in the Japanese attacking within seconds of the message to silence him. This is implausible. The Japanese carriers and aircraft were observing radio silence, and the ships heard the transmissions. They therefore would not send a message to the strike force to attack. But the supposed detection, analysis, and advice to aircraft is completely implausible given the immediacy of the attack. Other interpretations refer to McGrath being somehow jammed by the Japanese, but he was not silenced in any case, as he was able to broadcast later that day. According to historian Robert Rayner, it had taken some time to re-erect his antenna and establish contact after having been shot up that morning. Contrary to story, his transmissions had been jammed. He had in fact simply required the time to move further into the bush with his equipment and set up again. Fun times. Nice, Aaron. Why do people think the British World War I war debt to America was as much of a noose around the Shimpan's neck when the Royal Navy clearly knew disarmament talks were coming? Look, people, and even some historians, worryingly enough, and a lot of popular will tend to look for headline issues or simple, straightforward issues they can easily grasp as the root causes of things, problems. And sometimes they are right. But sometimes the answer is a lot more complicated and nuanced than that answer. Was the debt a factor? Yes. But a bigger thing was the British government's desire to pay down the debt as quickly as it possibly could. But still, when you look at defence spending in Britain, that still is usually a larger proportion of government spending, from memory, from when I last read the Cambridge British Historical Statistics book, which I usually have about there to grab, defence spending is usually higher than that is, and it was a case of the British were paying back the debts faster than they needed to, so they could have paid them back slightly lower level and had a bit more money. And if you consider the actual real cost of the British in terms of construction of what those ships would have been, they could have paid for more ships and still been answering it. Hi, Jack Ray. Thank you. I've just had a note someone saying I can allow gifts on this channel. I'm sort of going, why would I allow gifts? How would I allow gifts? Why would I allow gifts on my own channel? You look worn out. I am pretty worn out, but I have mainly it's the sheer amount of admin going on. Luckily, I very soon reach Sydney, at which point Gareth has to take over. And Gareth has already arrived in Sydney and already sent me several messages along the lines of, "Oh my lord." Colin Cameron, slightly off-topic question, but do you know if there is a list of warships that docked on the various promenade piers around the UK? Not a specific one, but there should be something somewhere. There should be something somewhere. but it's probably going to be spread out around the various archives and promenades. Like Fremantle makes more sense than Brisbane as a sub base, but they both still really south. They do, but they also work. Manchester dodged. Have you enabled GIFs on this channel, Melanie? It's not so bad on the finances. It's what can I say on the finances? Basically, as long as the paychecks arrive when they're supposed to, I'll be okay. And even if they're a little bit late, I'll be okay. If they're a lot late, well, then we all get in trouble. That's all right. But no, the paycheck, it should be okay. And frankly, yes. Ay, caramba. I'm taking a very pragmatic approach to finance on this trip, in that I doubt, unless my finances drastically change, I will be out here again anytime soon. And as such, as much as I would, hold fire on certain things, there's certain things I'm going, well, I'm probably never going to have the chance to do this again. So I will do it. And I did have that discussion with my family before I left home, and they basically, their view was, do it, and if there's problems, you can call us if it's not stupid. And that's basically the whole thing. So far, I haven't really done much which has really blown the bank. Books, but I was factoring in I would be spending money on books. I have kind of grown my book budget, but I'm only over my book budget actually in aggregate by about $10 because so many people have given me books. That's a lovely thing. I would say at least 2/3 of these books have been given to me, and therefore it's not my fault. The biggest cost for books was probably spending roughly $200 on a bag on some luggage to carry them around in. But the fact is, that saves me money, because if I put them all in my case, that was an extra $75 to $100 a time. So it started out as $50, but the more with the books that that came in next one when I arrived in Melbourne, it was a case of okay, so it's already got up $50 more. Going between Melbourne and this, there's more books, it's going to go up to over $100. At which point, the moment that saves me $100, that's half paid for. And considering I have had Melbourne to Brisbane, which I've done this one, then I have Brisbane to Sydney, so that's 2 flights. Then I have Sydney to Canberra. Then I have Canberra to Perth. So I have 4 flights coming up. That would have been, well, probably 75, probably 100 if people gave me any books, which we have. That would definitely therefore be 100 or probably more because of books, and then that'd be more. And so we could be talking about $500. So which is cheaper, spend $200 on a case or spend $500 transporting the books? It seemed more sensible. I don't know what's happening, Melanie. I really don't. Seeing Richard Starmus was that when Spitz took on Zeros for the first time? I'm not sure. I've checked. I haven't read through it. I haven't seen Spitfires involved yet. That doesn't. It seems to be Curtis P51, Curtis and Hawks rather than Spitfires there. Then Lord 99. A very interesting case from Bombing the Dawn was the HMS Kadumba was up on a floating dock when the attack happened, and the crew used her as an air barge. I thought, cool. Rosa, if you need a smaller trip, I think it would make Drac very happy to see George Avros. Yes, it would be, but we are actually having we're having this conversation. He was trying to work out how to add in the George Avros to pretty much any of the journeys we were going to do planning for next year, and I don't think it's going to work because I think we're going to be doing Scandinavia. We're going to be doing the Scandinavia section of the Baltic Flick because the first thing we've learned here is honestly we need to give more than 2 days to a place. We need to give at least 3 days. And that cuts things down quite dramatically in terms of time. If you're adding in a travel day, that means at least 4 days in place. So we think 4 days in Copenhagen. And if you work through the list, you sort of go, right, 4 days Copenhagen, 4 days including travel to Copenhagen, travel to Copenhagen, 4 days then, and 4 days there. You very quickly have, once you add in all the places you want to go in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, you very quickly get up to roughly 24 days, which is about the maximum time we want to do it for. You're the beat. Thank you, Jack Ray. Nice one. Would it be fair to say the British were planning to build 4,450 Lincolns? I think they'd love to build them if they could. They probably could, but you know they'd love to. That's my next question. I've noticed that no one after the London Naval Treaty and prior to World War II built subs or sloops to the 2,000-ton treaty limit, even though other ships were built to limits. Why is that? Because a sloop is built to be as cheap and as cheerful as possible, and also if you don't build it up to the limit, then people might not take notice of the hull form, and might not work out that, frankly, that vessel is not designed for a limiting speed of 20 knots. That's right. If you're doing Scandinavia, you might try and find him. We would love to add in, but the trouble is, it's going to sound strange. It's once we start adding in, the more places we add in, the more time we have to be away. And honestly, the factoring limit is probably about 25 days. Because I am doing 25 days exactly, and that is going to be tough. And if we're now moving it up to minimum places, a place for a minimum of 3 days, 2 days planned, 1 day as a surge day for every space we're going to, and surge day literally because we find stuff out we need to go see. It's like here there is stuff people start talking about us. We're going, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And we're going, no, we haven't, because we haven't got the time, because we've literally got the time to allocate it for this museum because it's such a cool museum. And that's what we want to see. That we do want to see the stuff museum, but also we're finding out all the stuff which we didn't know about before we got here. If you were First Sea Lord, how would you get out of the 136 Blackburn Rock before delivery start? Cry? No, I think I'd have them converted to skewers. I'd just basically go, I don't want them, I just want skewers. Dive bombers, please. Dive bombers. Or alternatively, can we use the money to pay for better engines for the skewers? Well, no, 2024 should be your year of destroyers, and 2026 should be your year of aircraft carriers. So you have time to get the information from the future trip from Japan about their carriers. Yes, that would be cool. You thought you allocated. No, I allocated enough time to see the museum. I just didn't realize there were all these extra little museums which don't appear on Google searches, which don't have websites, which no one told me about until I got here, and people then said, "Oh, have you seen this place?" And I just gone, I love them dearly, though. They are lovely people, the Australians. Hi, Steve Clarke. I know the USN will avoid things just to be contrarian, but it seems like everyone figured out double 4 and 5 inch destroyments before we did. Yes, but you have to remember the US Navy were trying to balance guns and torpedoes and have enough torpedoes, and then there's ammunition you need for a double gun versus a single gun. It was actually an interesting conversation I was having with someone today. It was over the 5-inch sort of the double gun, whether double or single guns, and yeah, what they told me interested me because, of course, it's the rate of fire thing, and they were sort of going, well, you know, can the single gun work and versus a double gun and the rate of fire, and I was sitting there thinking, well, what about sustained rate of fire as a useful thing for having a twin gun turret? It was an interesting discussion. We have had a lot of interesting discussions. There are some very interesting people out here in Australia who made me think. Flights can be changed, yes, but not without extra money. And then we also have to change. The trouble is, we have to we change those flights, but then I also have to change the bookings at the next museums and the place we're at, and the next ones, and the next ones, and I have to change them around. And that's when things get difficult. That's when things get really, really difficult. It's going okay. If someone prior to World War II made a 2,000-ton diesel electric sloop, could it be designed to accept an on of a diesel engine or two to bring the power up so that it can get to 30 knots? It would depend on the shafts. So you would either have to go for a diesel electric design, which would be the easiest way to do it. If you can go for a diesel electric design, and you've got at least a 2-shaft design, but preferably at least a 2-shaft design for a 2,000-ton vessel. If you can double up your diesel engines and double up your diesel generation capacity, that should work. That should work. But you need sort of space. And the electric motor, as 96 says, would need to be sized so to accept the additional power, as the prop would also need sized for the additional power. So you need to basically size things so that they would appropriately take the extra expansion, but you could do it. We'll be working out the exact things when we put it through, but it is my intention to make sure we're doing a minimum of 3 days everywhere we go, because I can fit more. I can make it work better there, but that does mean we have to cut down the number of places we actually visit. Remember, so what I hear you're saying is before you go to Japan, you're going to put up for your sort of smaller museums. Before I go to Japan, I am almost tempted to say that I'm going to have to send an advance party at this rate. Before I go to Japan, I want to have a steady 6 months of advertising we're going to Japan and getting people's suggestions in for museums to visit before we even start approaching the museums. So, Mark, in the Chandler Starman's Navy video, I commented that Type 21 was interesting in that it was a ship that kept to the limits of a treaty that they were not signing. Do we know why? Because they knew of the escalator clauses. So if they went over the treaty limits, then the escalator clauses were triggered for everyone else, and then they were dealing with problems. So HMAS Castlemaine, one of the best preserved little ships I've ever had the pleasure of wandering around, and an entire volunteer effort as well. Some really cool books, really, really cool books there. This was one of them. This was one of them. And definitely worth a read. Definitely worth a read. Unique among the corvettes, Castlemaine was neither scrapped nor sold off. In 1955, with the stroke of a pen in the Navy Office, she was allocated to Flinders Naval Base, HMAS Cerberus, for use as a stationary training ship for engine room personnel. To prepare this role, she was towed to Williamstown for a complete engine overhaul, with all the other non-essential equipment, such as minesweeping gear, guns, radar, wireless, ASDIC, boats, and deck fittings removed. In 1956, the steaming crew joined the ship for passage to Western Port Bay and Hands Inlet to be tied firmly to a wharf beside the steamship school. Castle remains home for the next 15 years. As a training ship for engine room mechanics and shipwrights, the boilers were flashed and the engines and propellers turned slowly. For the engine room crews, it was like being at sea, except they never left the wharf. The ship's decks were stripped bare and little of the rigging remained, but the anchor cables were flaked out on the wharf by the shipwrights as part of their training. The former mess deck was turned into a workshop and the minesweeping store into a classroom for the recruits. Later, the small arms magazine aft was turned into a damage control compartment. This would be flooded with water through water boxes that had various size holes and splits in them. Damage control parties had to either enter the compartment in the dark to plug the holes with smoke bombs while smoke bombs went off and water poured in. Rather cool. And a cool book. Again, I think you can only get this on HMAS Castlemaine, which is a shame, but it's edited by Robert Pearson, Peter Driver, and Kate Lance. It's worth a read. And it's published by Seed Books Press, so maybe seedbooks.net will sell it to you. No, I think money was correctly estimated for what we're going to do. We were planning on doing. I would like to add that in, but the original budgeting of roughly 10 grand a head included roughly a margin of padding. And that was a margin of padding worked in by me, which was roughly, I think it was a 5% margin I'd worked in. I seem to remember it was literally, I divided it by 20, and I think it was about £500 of padding that did deal with changes in expenses. I put it in originally when I was planning it because to deal with currency fluctuations, etc., I thought that was sensible. And we, of course, cut the budget down to reflect fundraising and other scenarios and the goals and the things are actually getting cheaper because the flights dropped in price dramatically. Yeah, we still, all the things we planned to do, we've met on the budget. It's just we've added stuff in, and we didn't have any spare in the budget to deal with stuff we added in, which is on us. It's a lesson for the future. Well, it's also a matter of logistics. It is. We did mess around with both of us a bit, and a few other things as well. We tried to get the 4-inch guns to work. So if you're in communication with major museums and locations today, I'll tell you about the interesting small museums that you may possibly also have an interest in. They do, but they seem to only tell us about them when we get there. I'm not sure why, but they don't seem to tell us about it in the email communications. And I'd say that's probably because we're so busy sorting out stuff to get there to them, and then when we meet them, we meet the curators, we meet the volunteers, and they're the ones who make the recommendations. So then in theory, the country of the diesel electric could just say, if anyone questions the size of electric motors, that their engines are just very inefficient, but secretly are very good. Yeah, they could do. But there are lots of reasons you can. You could also put a governor on them. You could just put a governor on them so that they could actually never go that fast. Yes, we did, but yeah, some of them were able to recommend the stuff, some of them weren't. The fact is, in the nicest way, you've got here in Brisbane, Kay. I will use her name. I will say Kay, but all the team, Kay and the rest of the team from Brisbane and Queensland Maritime Museum have been absolutely spectacular, and they have given us stuff around here, and we know exactly what we're going to do. But then we're talking to someone and they're going, well, that's popped up over there, and that's not that far outside Queensland. But Kay hadn't told us about it because, of course, we didn't have a vehicle. But, of course, if we'd known about it in advance, we could probably have put the word out and gone to our supporters, is there someone here? It's like for Fleet Air Museum. We'd really love if we think it's sensible if we have a local driver after the Albany experience, etc. So we are, I think Drax taking the lead and trying to organise a local driver for that, for driving down to the Fleet Air Museum from Sydney. And yeah, it's fun, but it's stuff we're learning. And it's a case of, yeah, we could have had an extra day, we could organise stuff, but then we'd have to rearrange everything else. We can't do that. We have been making a lot of good connections, and we hopefully been connecting up a lot of other people as well. Great, you had far too much fun with the both of us. Remember, Dr. Clarke, nice thing about Japan is, from a certain perspective, is for their fashion, geographically more compact than trains are in Russian. Yes, and the thing is, what we've now realized with Japan, because of their train network, we can conceivably set ourselves up in 2 or 3 locations and just use those as the locations to go out from, and basically like those as base points, which means we can factor in spare days far more easily because we have less travel time between different bases. So we'd only have 2 changes of location, possibly 3, if we go back to the original base location from where we started, and a few days there. And so that's possible with Japan. It isn't so much possible elsewhere. It's like when we're looking at the Scandinavia trip, that's a lovely plan and that's a lovely trip to do, but we were looking at it from the point of view of driving perhaps between certain places, and it's 13 hours between, I think, Trondheim and Narvik, and we basically went, nope, that won't be impossible. And we were looking at the options, going, where do we want to visit, what do we want to do, and was it Trondheim and Narvik, or was it Oslo and Narvik? I'm not sure. It was 13 hours, and it was just a case of, no, that's not doable. We'll have to fly these things. Potentially 90k run. Japan does have the Mikasa, and they have a lot of other things as well. 900. Did you get to see the record of HMS Cerberus in Melbourne? Yes, we did. We didn't get helped by the Cerberus Society. We got helped by, well, I don't think he was a member of them. We got helped by another local who basically arranged to sort it out for us and got us there. I did email them, but it got sent back to me, so I think I might have used the wrong email client. There will be some more aircraft carrier survival games posted in the future. Steve Clarke, on the subject of diesel electric, the power of motors for a Flower class was 1,450 horsepower. How many would be needed for an escort vessel the size of travel? Oh, no. For a T class was 1,450 horsepower. How much is this vessel of a Flower class to get 1 to 20 knots? Let's see. Theoretically, with 2,700 of the indicated horsepower for a Flower class, you could probably use 2 of the T classes engines, so 2,008. Well, that'd be 2,900 horsepower. So yeah, that should be enough to double the T class power. I won't forget the buses either, but have you tried to negotiate a certain other naval historian who's very public onto a bus? I will tell you now that it is an experience. He is committed to many things, and one of them is he will travel the bus, but yeah, he will avoid it as well. And also, to be fair, I have a habit of I can navigate on trains, but if I'm on buses, I get lost. I don't know why. Yeah, it is. The steamer is, yeah, the bullet train is cheaper to get around than the planes around Australia. We haven't been to Australia. We haven't been to Sydney yet. That's next place. And the War Memorial in Canberra is where I'll be going. As said, I think on the. Let me just check so I make sure I get the right date. I will be in the War Memorial on the 23rd. That's when I'm visiting them. I have sent them an email and told them I'm coming, which I think I've received an acknowledgement for, but not much more. I think an America without a Korean and Vietnam War would be in a very different scenario than an America with a Korean and Vietnam War. Not quite the distance between cities in Japan as Australia. No, you have to remember Australia is an extremely expensive country and expansive country. Please know what I'm saying. It's spread over a large amount of area. And so let's say this is tonight's 3, 6. Yeah, let's say this is tonight's last book. I'll do a 7th one, and then I will go to bed. So this is the other option of the submarines. Subs Down Under, Brisbane, 1942 to 1945, by David Jones and Peter Noonan. There might be a theme going on here. And Peter has written some very interesting books. He's written HMS Damantia, and he's written which I showed you earlier, which I had a signature of, and he's written this one. And worth a read, definitely. And this one is all about the subs in Brisbane. So basically, if you've got this and Secret Fleets, you've got the two sides of the fleet bases. And it's really quite cool. Talks about all the build-up in Brisbane, and you also have, I think, in the back. I think you have a list of American submarines using Brisbane base. And visiting submarines, and shipping sunk by the submarines. It's cool. It's a very, very interesting book. It's this one, and it's Subs Down Under. If you're interested in the American submarine operations in Australia, Subs Down Under and Secret Fleet seems to be pretty good books to start with. They really do. And Australia is expensive. I've lived there over 20 years. Yeah, that's the other thing. We have found, honestly, food and drink and those things seem slightly more expensive than we're budgeting for, but not that bad. So far as interesting thing I've tried as far as local cuisine was honestly, it's going to sound strange. Most of the things are the Australian variation on what you have elsewhere, I've seen so far, but all their chips seem to be versions of spicy chips. The Australians do seem to make their food a lot spicier than others do. It's not bad spicy; it's quite nice spice, but it is a lot more spice added onto things. Seems to be far more common for spice to be added on than elsewhere. Rapid Razorback, in the vein of the current honestly not a carrier. Did someone try to do it with the Washington Naval Treaty or the London Naval Treaty? There is the HMS Unicorn, which was honestly a forward aviation support ship, There's a few other vessels with similar intent going around. And I should say today's recorded video that's going to be coming out is a long patrol on the Junipole. Roughly 40 odd minutes of Junipole discussion. And this won't go on for much longer. I'm only going to do about an hour's live. And thank you again for the memberships, Jack Ray, if I didn't say this earlier. You would, I have to say, mostly, you can usually find a dish you can eat in Australia. You can usually find a dish you understand and can eat. And it's nice food. How much more costs the additional carriage of the small library you're bringing home? That's going to be an interesting discussion between me and Singapore Airlines. That is, but at the moment I can get it around Australia itself without too much difficulty. We'll discuss with Singapore Airlines exactly what it's going to be. It could be interesting. It could be an interesting conversation I have with them in Perth. So far, no, I have not indulged in the Tim Tam Slam. I found it wildly disappointing yet. No, I haven't. I am, though, finding that there are some things which are very different than home. It's fun though. It's a very straightforward country. Denmark, yeah, Submarine 6 by Tom Lewis. I might well look up that book. I think I have it already at home from that I got on Amazon, so that's why I haven't sort of picked up. May not be. If I'm actually buying books over here, it's books which I haven't seen in the UK. I've been able to get from UK Amazon. Hello, Marga. Steve Clarke. Alex, a friend of mine asked about the US Liberty incident. Now, I know this involves an intelligence, so there are conspiracy theories attached to Wikipedia. Is this a taboo subject? It's not really a taboo subject, but it is a subject which I prefer to look at when I was in the comfort of my own home, where I've got access to my books, which I think has a book on the Liberty incident, rather than talking about it off the top of my head. Now, second, if the RF does not appear in 1918, when is the year? When is the most likely year of excretion? Some point in World War II. Probably in about 1940-41, when the British are trying to really fight back and take the war to Germany, and it would involve probably the heavy bomber force and possibly the fighters being dived off from the army. Because it would be the Royal Flying Corps, which would be taken off. The Fleet Air would be spread around the world as part of the Navy and to integrate it in for it to be easily taken out of them. Possibly some of their stuff based in the UK would still go. I will try some seafood. I have tried a little bit of seafood. I didn't say British food is bland. I said that in the nicest way. The Australians like to put a lot of spice on their chips and things. It's like that. You can't have plain chips. They're all spicy. And I was looking for cheesy chips, but it didn't work. Hello. And we're back. Some stupid hands are sending books home by mail. No, I've looked into that. It's not. Are you sure the extra suitcase? Here, Richard. Jeffrey, do Austrians eat emu? It's not endangered. No, they don't seem to serve emu, but that may be because they're their overlords. Greedle, domestic lions rarely with your carry-on bag. Stuff it with the heavy books. That's what I am doing. My God, are you sure the extra suitcase you brought will be big enough for all the books once you're at the end of the trip? No, but there again, I will then have far more weight allowance in the big case. So that will go up from 20. That goes up from 23 kilograms to 35 kilograms for the flight home, and so I can modify things then. London Maximus, post-statute of Westminster 1951, how much control did the United States Kingdom have over Dominion? Say, if Canada rejected the Second London Treaty and started to build navy outside of naval limits of treaties, naval treaties. It could be interesting because it becomes a theoretical discussion. And that's one of the reasons why they have to sign up to it themselves. English is the fun one. There's English, American English, Australian English, Canadian English, and there's even Spanish English, often known as Spanglish. Oh, good Lord. Colin Cameron, you are scaring me for Japan. It's taking me and Drac around bookstores is terrible. I just knocked the camera. WKY044, just want to clarify, when you and Dan visited Whiteman Park here in Wales, you mentioned they found parts of Australia's second, was that the racing art? Navy ship. Navy ship. Steve Clarke, Emu versus the Corgi, who wins? Well, you know the Corgi is my assistant, fluffy research assistant. So I would say the Emu had better watch out because the Corgi will be very, very fast. The Emu might well be able to beat him in a race, but I think in a fight they might find the Corgi will take them down to their level quite quickly. I drank the Melbourne Stash. No, I'm not living on last on Melbourne Stash. Someone brought me Iron Brew this evening. They brought me 6 cans. Well, they technically brought me and Drac 12 cans, and I very kindly actually gave him 6 rather than limiting him and telling him it's 4. So I have got 2 for tonight. I have got 2 for tomorrow evening, and I've got 2 for the morning before we fly. There's also Newfoundland English, though it's debatable as a language of its own. I would always feel it's a bit of a language of its own. And there's Deutsch English, yes, and there's also Dunglish, which is Dutch English, or Dutlish sometimes it's called. Yeah, I think in future we will start the donation campaigns in about February to make my life a little bit more sane. The trip has been massively interesting. You are feeding my habit. I tried to get books in Japan, but I have a small problem of having my bag size restricted to go back and having stuff full of fridge magnets. What can I say? Buy more books, buy more bags. So far, I actually haven't managed to find Iron Brew to buy, but I've been told it is very expensive, and it tends to be in the foreign food section of Woolworths. I do have a ration plan for Iron Brew. Oh my God, don't forget Indian English. I have to deal with that way too much work. Yeah. Or as I call that, English. English. Please know what I'm saying. It's fun. It's all fun. Right, I am going to say good night to you all because it is now midnight, and I think I have been live for a little while. And thank you very much, everyone. So, any questions before I go? Very well. I think they have a $2.20 a can. Sheesh. I know, Andrew. I visited Castlemaine and maintain an older ship Sydney. Cool. Is carry-on luggage also full of books? Let me explain carry-on luggage. So, carry-on luggage. I have this bag, this lovely suitcase which I procured, which is literally procured to carry books. That is its sole purpose. It is technically able to be carry-on, and so it is used as carry-on. It is carry-on luggage. It is carry-on. Right. Yes, Jack, right, English can be a very interesting language to inject things into. It quite happily enjoys different different phraseology behind it. And I say, why do ships' cats not get canned amongst the crew losses when the ship is sunk? Because we have two reasons. One, they're not paid officially, and two, it's the Royal Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. How long do you think before, with Britain reporting that cats as part of the losses on ships, how long do you think before A, the British government, British public could get completely filled with wrath towards their opponents, and B, start demanding that ships' cats not be carried, for why should they be sacrificed at sea when ships' cats are an important part of the ship's company? It's a interesting scenario. Jack Ray, suitcase, bookcase, yes, they're two things. Thank Steve Richards. Thank you, Greedle. Blackman Maximus, what are your thoughts on the 5.5-inch guns on the French pre-World War II large destroyers? I think once you go over 5 inches in a destroyer, you are pushing it by a long range, and you're basically trying to build a cruiser in destroyer capabilities terms. That's why I have a big thing about the 5.9-inch guns. Thank you, Steve Clarke. Thank you, Rob Roseback. Thank you, 1999 Jake. Thank you. Yeah, it's the sleep thing is a part of it, but also I'm going to rewrite my slides for tomorrow, because while sitting here talking to you, well, later on today, I found an idea for my slides, so I'm going to take out one slide and add a new one. Can we expect some Royal Australian Navy streams on your return to UK? Yes, you can expect some stuff. There's also going to be some recorded videos which are going to come out over the Christmas period. Paulinus, why don't you start your finances straight away when you get back, as you have your next 2-year plus plans already mapped out? Because we're worried about them cannibalizing each other. Plus, we need to also take some time to learn the full lessons of Australia and learn the full funding lessons of Australia. Thank you, Steve Clarke. My friend, my carry-on luggage was full of electronics, and then I had my tablet full of naval literature. I might have a problem with buying 5 or 6 books each time I go on holiday. Fun times. And it will weigh 20 kilograms. Hopefully, it shouldn't weigh 20 kilograms. Take care, for villain. I look forward to meeting you in Devils in Sydney. I look forward to meeting you. Take care. There will be more videos, and there will be a couple more lives. I will try and do lives about the books as I go, and I hope to at least do another couple. I'd like to do at least one from Sydney, and I'd like to do at least one more from Perth, probably. I'd like to do that because then I'll have done almost every stop. I don't think I'll manage one in Canberra. I think we'll have too much going on. But I think I especially hope we have stuff in the evenings. We've tried to organise stuff for the evenings in Canberra, but I think, yeah, I can get stuff done in Sydney and Perth. Take care, everyone, and I'll answer the final questions now. Thank you to Brock, and thanks to GP. Nice one. Gonna have to rewatch this for the Republic of Korea question and answer. China Korea question and answer. Yeah, there is an answer in there. Back Maximus, good night, and also good morning from Ontario, Canada. Good morning. WKY044, the attacks on land may be sadly overlooked even here in Australia. It wasn't until I visited the storage tunnels on Darwin City that I learned how much really happened in World War II, and also how much fuel the British had actually prepared, and how much fuel they literally had everywhere. Scrap Island footage is sadly missed away their museum exhibits. Yes, they are. But they had a good section in Diamantina. Thank you, SG Vanguard. Thank you, 99 Andrew. Thank you, Poemus. And thank you, Jack Ray. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. And take care. I have to flick behind there to turn it off. So take care, everyone. And have fun. Doodles. And boom. Exit. Okay. Are you sure you want to exit?